My name is Tony Samso. I'm the executive director and co-founder with Open Air. We are a collaborative arts organization who is rooted here in Missoula, but we're serving broader Western Montana and beyond, really, through primarily our place-based artist in residence program. We connect artists from across the country, across Montana, even internationally, with unique sites around Western Montana. And right now, we are kind of wrapping up a good part of our fall session. We have a number of artists that are scattered across. We have 4 artists up at the bio station. We have an artist at the Butterfly House and Insectarium here at the Missoula Public Library, and an artist that just arrived down in Hamilton, Montana. And so we're so thrilled to be featuring, highlighting their work and what happens during these collaborations. And so thanks again for being here today. Our work is made possible by the support of individuals like yourselves and support from the National Endowment for the Arts, from the Pat and Terry Payne family, from the Laura Barrett Family Foundation Fund, and the Beck family. And many others, and we're super grateful for everyone's generous support making this happen. One of the things we really care about with a residency is providing time, essential time and space for artists to get curious, to connect, to ask those questions, to experiment. And oftentimes people come into contact with the arts in some sort of finished product. You see a wrapped up dance, you see a gallery exhibition, you see the answers to all the questions. And one of the things that we really care about with the residencies is those questions and the process. And so these presentations are kind of bring you into the middle of somebody's process. And so they can be kind of vulnerable for the artist because they're still asking questions. And so we appreciate the vulnerability it takes to stand up here and share about creative process and practice, and appreciate your compassion and curiosity about what they're up to. I would love to invite Alex up here, who is with the Missoula Public Library Makerspace, to introduce a little bit about the Makerspace and the library to kind of ground us in where we are today. And then I'll introduce Rachel. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alex. I recognize a good amount of the faces in here, I feel like, but not everybody. I run the Makerspace down on the first floor of the library. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's just a space where people can come in. We have all sorts of fancy tools and things that are available for the public to use, and my job is to teach the public how to use them. So for example, we have 3D printers, we have laser cutters, we have soldering equipment, and within the schedule, obviously, anybody can come in and use this equipment free of charge. And if you don't know how to use it, that's totally fine. It's my job to teach you how to use it. My role within this environment is I help provide some of that space, that time for artists to come in and do what they do best. It was particularly fun with Rachel because she was already very familiar with a lot of the tools we had. So it made the job a little bit more fun. We got to dive into the fun stuff earlier in the process. But yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got. So I'll pass it on to Rachel. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, almost. We're almost to the good stuff here. One of my favorite things about Rachel's time here so far is her kind of bursting beyond the bounds of the makerspace too. She's gotten really curious. You'll hear about this collections and the literature and the scanner, which has been really exciting to hear about. But let me just share with you Rachel's bio. Rachel McGovern, who is docked right now in LA, explores the interactions of form, building an archive of work that plays amongst ideas of minimalism, tactility, and ornamentation. The objects she creates become interactive sculptures for everyday use, considering material and design. The performances between human and object and human are key in the construction of her work. Viewers become collaborators as their visual reaction and use of each object is the ultimate product of her work. Please help me in welcoming Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to show you some of my previous work, and then also what I've been doing here during the time of residency. So first slide might be a little bit of reiteration, and it's just my artist statement. Like Stoney said, I explore interaction with form by building an archetypal work that plays amongst ideas of camp, minimalism, tactility, ornamentation. The objects I make become interactive sculptures. I like to say I'm a functional sculptor or, designer craftsman, especially through consideration of material and design, and performance between the viewer and the object and viewer. So again, functionality is important to most of my work. Here is a brief overview of my CV. I attended my undergrad at Virginia Commonwealth University, studying craft material studies, and afterwards I moved to Los Angeles. I've been there for about 7 years. And in 2021, I decided to go to grad school at Arts Center College of Design, and I studied graduate environmental design, focusing on furniture, lighting, and fixtures. And kind of going into my process a little bit, how I work. Research has always been a major part of my process, whatever project I'm working on, whether it be more functional product or more of a art object or applied arts. I research, I scan, I sketch, I doodle, I scan and refine, and I sketch and I erase and I bring back. So a lot of push and flow, ebb and flow between what I'm going to make. I put a lot of time into researching what I'm going to make before I even decide to sketch it or model it. My inspiration, I draw a lot from visual product, branding, graphics, pop culture, my environment of Los Angeles, nostalgic colors and type. I'm a big fan of graphic design. I've also been using very spontaneous digicam images of my time, my travels, just collecting things and somewhat being a hoarder in that way of these images. So here's just a brief overview of some of the works I did from 2014 to 2021, mostly from my time at undergrad at VCU Arts and then my pre-graduate years in Los Angeles. So when I studied craft material studies, my focus was in fibers and wood. So basically woodworking and textiles. With that, I combined them together, very craft heavy inspired works with pops of colors and playing with dimension and size to create these kind of characters. And then my time in Los Angeles before going to grad school, I worked primarily with what researches I had. I went through pandemic there, working a lot with paper pulp, making pillowcases, making little Grateful Dead candles, just things to pass the time during COVID. After COVID, I went to graduate school, and this is my first major piece. The brief for this project was Light on the Move. To create a pneumatic lighting piece that accompanies you from space to space, from indoor to out, and that moves you when you move. And this was the Brisky light, which was inspired by the iconic film in 1970 by Michelangelo Arnolini. Looking at the Mexican fence post cactus as my inspiration for form. They scatter the Mojave Desert, which is right by Los Angeles. This handsome cactus has tall, columnar trunks and reaches heights of 20 feet or more. It produces clusters of stout, cylindrical stems that resemble a pipe organ. It is a deep green with ribs that have minor spines. The plant's common name comes from the fact that it is planted mostly along roads and fences in villages, mostly in Mexico, hence the name Mexican fence post. I use this shape to create this light, and I wanted to embody the color of that sun you get in the Mojave Desert. The cacti, they form a metaphysical backbone within the Mojave, a spinal connection that helps define the imagery of wonder of the Southwestern United States. And when I did this light, I wanted to embody this form into this light with a focus on the ribs and the light quality through a 3D printed resin material. So I did have a lot of experience with 3D printing before coming here. And I also incorporated it with the LED cob light, which creates like a very solid light within the structure. Next, I'd like to introduce you my graduate thesis lighting collection, which is entitled Material Objects. They're my early stages of material exploration for this. I noticed a challenge with our inability to define the boundaries between material and object. Throughout this push and pull process came the celebration of materials that are objects, but objects that are also materials. This collection lies in the intersection which allows them to be both. We are currently amidst the fourth industrial revolution, which has blurred the boundaries between physical, digital, and biological worlds. A fusion of AI, robotics, 3D printing, genetic engineering, and quantum computing, to say the least, has us heading towards a fifth and rolling speed. This thesis is my reaction to that chronic innovation needing a fleeting appreciation for materials. Wanted to use this moment to pause and to look left, look right, look forward, look back, redirect, reconsider, repurpose, and reintroduce new opportunities, new awareness, new function, and new desire. The materials I chose for this project, for this thesis, support and build our everyday spaces, yet seldom get airtime. This collection switches the spotlight to reveal these materials and appreciate their importance through the new function desire. Material objects are often cast as cold, hard, unapproachable, closed with set function and desire and means of use. These were attributes I actually looked for when I was sourcing my material. Instead of downcasting such attributes, I wanted to retextualize them through design. As the strategy of this collection is to reintroduce these material objects previously overlooked as designer choice and as a designed object, requiring the viewer to reconsider previous impressions on given functionality. The first piece in this collection you might notice or recognize as a HVAC duct, elbow. And typically these are placed behind walls and drywall and appliances. The material object now is reintroduced to you as a source of design, illumination, and play. These are completely movable, modular. You can move them to different situations, different positions, because they're industry engineered to do that. The adjustable duct allows the user to interact with the piece through rotation of the elbows, giving you opportunities to collaborate, form in different positions of play, highlighting the usually unseen material object to the average customer, now a dynamic interactive light piece, bringing attention to ductwork design while removing it from its former shelf value through finish and light quality in 3D printed lenses, elevating an otherwise mundane galvanized steel while exploring the wide range of sizing these comes in. You know, I went to the HVAC ducting in the factory that was outside Los Angeles. I mean, you can get anything from the smallest at 4 inches to the biggest at 20, or any custom size you want. So really giving a new light to this product as a designer choice. The next piece I have in this collection presented here, you may recognize as a latex hosing or tubing. This tubing is commonly found under sinks or in our showers, but here I used it, I wrapped it around this designed frame to create a light shade. And when I put the light into it, it actually creates a really beautiful, rich, warm color, illuminated with the LED bulb. It's flexible and durable, along with its illumination qualities. The latex tubing reveals hidden function and newfound desire. And lastly, I'll introduce to you my perforated sheet pendant. This piece showcased it as commonly a common structure supported perforated sheet. You can get it from McMaster, you can get it from anywhere. But in collaboration with electrical braided sleeving and LED strip, I turned it into a light. The electrical braiding sleeving is used generally for wire management, bundling, or identification of wires for electronics. But when I put the LED light, it created a beautiful orange glow. And the braided sleeving is now used to form the single LED strip to create a dynamic weaving of light, color, and pattern. This collection hopes to live in the home, yet also presents livability in more than just that. Areas such as lobbies, offices, and retail and galleries, functioning both as viable light sources and as applied art. So furthermore, it now leads to my time here at Open Air. During my time here at Open Air in the Missoula Public Library, I wanted to really lean into my research process that I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. Scanning images and books in collaboration with the collection of my graphic hoarding and my cocktail napkins and my wrappers I have, I bring with me everywhere. I have picked up through my travels. At the start of my time here, I sourced my content from the 3rd floor mainly. Had to limit myself because I could spend all day scanning books. Using the overhead scanner to pick and choose visuals for my digital collages, I started from the large format books and moved my way to antique pricing books, to fly fishing books, to self-help books. You know, I kind of picked and choose and bookmarked the pages I thought were interesting, and I scanned them, spending upwards of 3 hours on the overhead scanner, giving it probably the only use it will have all year. But with these digital works, I have started to image transfer the works onto these wood panels that I built at the start of residency. The image on the left here uses images from the Kitchen Collectibles book, which I have here today. This has been one of the biggest sources of inspiration for me during my time here. It is loaded with amazing collectibles. Some going for up to $600. Anyways, with the cattle creamers overlaying pictures of Earth from the book Earth from Above by Jan Yerkes, and butterflies from 100 Butterflies by Harold Feinstein. And on the right, we have Snoopy and the Reamers. The image also uses imagery from Kitchen Collectibles with multiple Reamers, a Snoopy cookie cutter, and a seal colony in the background from Earth from Above. Another piece I have work in progress is bringing together images from the scanned books and my personal collection to create this canvas of work. This one uses imageries from Kitchen Collectibles by Kyle Voisin, and with a Bart Simpson cup egg and archive imagery of an emerald swallowtail from 100 Butterflies by Harold Feinstein. Another one I have working is Life on Mars, uses imageries from Postcards from Mars by Jim Bell, and along with toys from Cracker Jack Toys by Larry White and antique cookie colors from Kitchen Collectibles, I created this kind of Wild West of what I imagined life on Mars would be, and we have the tracks of the Mars rover there, and you know, basically what happens when we're not looking at Mars. Just creating these digital collages and image transferring them onto these larger panels. Moving more into my 3D work while my time is here, I wanted to use a makerspace, as that is my primary residency here at the library. When going to Home Resource, I found this used water tank, primarily used for plumbing or agriculture. I cleaned it up and trimmed off the valves. The idea is to turn this plastic water tank into a floor light by placing the light bulb into the bottom and add furniture legs to give it some height and some space to show up the light. Using Makerspace and their 3D printers, I was able to download Rhino onto one of the MCAP computers and modeled out a few options for lamp legs. Again, this is still work in progress. Hope to have it completed by the end of my residency here. So I have a couple designs here for lamp legs and playing with different combinations of twists and columns to create these supports for this light. And then with Makerspace, was able to print these out, and they're over here. These are just prototypes, so the color has not been chosen, but I just wanted to see it in reality and the small sizing and big sizing. So here's a rendered view of these legs. And then some more rendered views testing out different styles of legs. Working with the Makerspace to test out different prints, and then by the end I'll find my correct style and print the final one with Alex and Makerspace. I'd like to say thank you to everyone being here today. I'd like to open the floor to any questions or discussion. Please let me know if there's any slide requests, and please feel free to come up and look at all of my collectibles. I have just multiples of just wrappers and my notebooks, and then some of the works I'm working on right now that are all in progress. The light is not wired yet, but just wanted to show the scale and everything. So this is the water tank itself. Again, thank you for being here, and please feel free to ask any questions or any slide requests.
Yeah. There's this concept of craft and art, and this is a great discussion because I come here from a different background than you do in materials. So I'm just curious because I know other folks that have come from the University of Craft, and where's it at that you got your degree in?
VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU.
Richmond.
In Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. Well, anyway, that probably informs so much of where you're going with your work. Mm-hmm. And so here's my concept is always like, there's people who work in different materials, like clay or plastic or paper, and it's a craft, and it's generally very functional. And then you've got art out on the other end of the spectrum, has no functional capacity possibly, and then you got this functional art in between. And so there's probably a continuum there, right?
Yeah.
I think there's some kind of a continuum. Where I'm curious where you think your work falls in that continuum, because we get craft and art mixed up a lot. Even if you really think you know what it is, you probably could probably have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
So because no one else asked a question, I thought I'd ask a question.
No, this has been a big question since my time at PCU and being in craft material studies. The idea of craft identity is having a hard time, right? I mean, when I was I graduated in 2016, so even by the time I graduated, there's this question of like, is this craft, is this sculpture, is this art? Because there was so much of craft technique or craft materials being borrowed by sculptors and artists, it kind of blurs this line, and craft, in my opinion, had a hard time like standing up for itself. Being like, okay, this is craft. And I guess in my opinion, my work definitely has craft in mind, but I don't think I apply it in the same way as like a craftsman would. I don't create dovetails. I don't do like high craftsman stuff. I mean, I guess this is more along a sloppy craft or that trend, So that's kind of where it leads to art, where not to say my things don't work, but I mean, sometimes I'm like, don't sit on it. So there is this like in between, I think that would be a good distinction, would be like craft needs to work, and it needs to be crafted beautifully. I mean, in my understanding of craft, like that was one of the critiques we always had, was how was it made? Was it made well or made poorly? Meanwhile, in sculpture, and this is all in academia, that was not really a question of how it was made and can it last. It was more of what am I looking at? So I think that is a good way of identifying between craft and art, but I do agree it's still hard to decide because they influence each other a lot, or at least craft has influenced art a lot, especially in materials and material techniques. So I don't know, it's something I struggle with a lot, and it was a question I had for myself during my thesis. Before I discovered my thesis of material objects, I wanted to discuss this idea of art and design. And I realized that is a very large topic, and I only have like a year to finish my thesis. So it is a question I ask myself a lot, and I even like someone who maybe would do like branding or graphics would be like, oh, you're leaning really heavy into these product and packaging, like you're borrowing from so many different things. So where is that located in your art? So I mean, for me, it's more about appreciation. Like I love to see these things. I am drawn to these different packagings and these different, ideas of typeface and color, and combining that with functional sculpture. That's why I use the terminology functional and sculpture, because I don't have the words to separate it right now, So I don't, to answer your question about where does my work lie, I mean, I would say the intersection, hopefully. Probably could be a little bit more craftsman in some of my things, but that's when I call it art, like these are weird things you can categorize as.
Is this box going to have a light in it?
Correct. So
once you put the light in it, now it's going to serve a function.
Exactly. So
but maybe a little tiny light wouldn't serve a function.
Yeah. So that's where it's like, okay, well, I know the functionalities of a light. Like I've created lights that work and live in homes, and so I know like what it's needed to create a good light. While I also want to use things that are not, if I told someone I was like, oh, I want to, make this light and let's use this water tank material, they're like, well, why don't we just go rotoform a material for this light? And my thing is, well, why would we go rotoform something and spend thousands of dollars to create this model when we can just use what's already in the market? These are pumped out every day, in mass quantities. So I just go buy a water tank and sauce cut a hole in the middle and then put the light in, So it is like this idea of like designer choice, and working within design and with interior designers and architects, it's just interesting like how there is these levels of what is shelf value versus what is designer value. And you can make something look designer value while buying it at shelf value. So that's kind of what my thesis was about, and I hope, through this residency, have continued to work in that vein with my 3D objects.
Cool.
Rachel, would you talk more about your process? And I hope everybody goes up and checks out this amazing collection of objects. But can you get into your research process and like how you start and work your way through decisions?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I started my process, it really was when I went to art school undergrad. And luckily, I mean, I do thank libraries because I went to my library at BCU that had a great arts collection, and I, looked at the people I was studying in my craft history or design history, and scan these images, and it's something about collecting the image. It's not just looking at it and memorizing it. It's about the act of like dog-earing it and bringing it. Well, I've never dog-eared it. The bookmark, the librarian would get very mad. But bringing it to the scanner and kind of creating my own image from it. That I scanned this, I created this image into the computer by physically going and making this image. That I feel like a much more strong connection to it, and so that's how I started doing a lot of my work. I would go and research, and I would collect all these images, and then from there, I'd sketch my own designs. It was 2024, nothing had not been done. So I borrow ideas from other people or, other designers and artists. And from there, that's how a lot of my work happens. But when it comes down to like making more 2D works, like these panels, it's much more involved. And, I spent a lot of time going through the library and looking at different books. And sometimes I look through a whole book and I find nothing. And I would think, oh, this book kind of catches my eyes, up my alley for things I'm interested in imagery, but nothing is in there. Meanwhile, I'll find something like this kitchen collectibles book that I like is a gem that I feel like I scanned almost the whole book. So basically I found these images and then I have them all on my computer and I archive it, and then I bring it into Photoshop and I kind of start with a base image. So we can go back to some of the images I have been working. So say this one. So this base image here is the sea colony from Art from Above. Meanwhile, the other one is from 100 Butterflies. And it's kind of like a layering of that. So I bring this in and then I layer on top of it. And then I'll see from my scans like all these images of the cow creamers or all the reamers. And a lot of my work has humor in it. Funny things. I want to, I like to reference things from pop culture we understand, because I want to have that connection of humorous in my work. So I'll go ahead and layer, and I very much spend a meticulous amount of time laying everything out into this digital collage. And then once it's done, I also look at my collection. And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, do I want to have this applied to the panel as another material, like another layer, right? Or do I want to scan this and have it be more flat onto the digital? So it is kind of like, where does this work? So if we look down here at this piece here, it's still work in progress, but we have the image transfer from the digital file, but I've applied some other cutouts I have from a grocery newspaper I get in Los Angeles for deals. But then I also have popcorn bag here, which is just to honestly cover up some mistakes I made in the transfer. And then also here I have a address plaque from Ace Hardware. So it's kind of like I kind of go through this process of how flat do I want this image to look, and how incorporated do I want to bring in all my things? Do I want them all to be digital and flat, or do I want them to have this dimension of layers? So it's a very layered process, and I honestly from when I go and pick out these things, it's kind of just like a vibe. It's not I don't ever go with an intention of I know I want to find a book that does this or covers this. I mean, I think the only book in my process so far for the library was I wanted to find a book on flies, because I think they're so cool. And I found one with 6,000 flies. So that was kind of the only book that I went with intention to find during my time here. Otherwise, kind of just, looking through the library, kind of just browsing. What I think most people would do when they go to the library, browsing for books. So it's been a great opportunity to, browse for books and be able to scan them and create these images from that, using what they have here at the library. I don't know if that answers your question, kind of long-winded, but that's kind of how my process goes and how I pick and choose things.
Follow-up question. How do you know an image is good? What's the, do you get goosebumps? What happens?
Yeah, definitely. I just see it and I'm like, okay, no, this is like, I love this image. Like whether I love the object or not. Sometimes I think I scanned some things from the kitchen collectibles, these green glass jars. They're gorgeous. They're from like the early 1900s. I don't think they're going to create a great object to put in a collage, but I love the object itself. So for me, it's just I have that on my computer, and maybe one day it will work for something. But sometimes the images don't work. You know, I'll scan things that don't work all the time. So it's kind of just a feeling, yeah. And I'll bookmark things before I go to the scanner, and then sometimes I go to the scanner and I go to a page I bookmarked, and I'm like, I don't like this, you know. So it's kind of like a first pass, second pass, and then when it gets scanned, it will make the cut. And then even then, when I go to the computer and go on Photoshop, I'm like, this isn't working, I don't like it, and it just goes back into the archive. So yeah, it's definitely more from a feeling. There's no like great equation to make what makes. I mean, probably for me, I'm definitely attracted to certain colors and certain like shapes, and obviously like recognizable objects from pop culture. Those are kind of like how I pick and choose things. But yeah, usually just like I just have a feeling when I see something.
Okay. Last one.
No.
How many images do you think you've scanned in to your computer since you've been here?
I have all the books written down because I want to give credit, obviously, to the authors and photographers used in these books. I think I'm at about like 30 books. So, and again, I said not all images made the cut, so I do delete some from my hard drive sake. But I think I'm somewhere, when I last looked, around like 223 images or something was like that. And of course, within these images, there's multiple images. So I can source like these reamers, a lot of these came from like all the same pages, because it's like obviously the chapter on reamers. Same thing with the cows. Otherwise one book just gave me one image and that's it. So yeah, I think I'm looking at around 200 something, and I hope before I leave the library, I want to scan some more of my physical objects, which I haven't had time to do yet. But so then I bumped up to like 400 or something like that. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. Yeah. Yes.
Rachel, a couple of things. First of all, when I don't live here, I live in Fairfax, Virginia, so I know where you went to school. My wife's a fellow alumna of yours.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I grew up in Arlington.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, or I guess McLean. People don't really know McLean as much as they know Arlington, so I say Arlington. But yeah, Fairfax County, I know it well.
So that's fun. Question of you, and that is, how did you tell us, roll the clock back a little bit as to how you got pointed or self-pointed into this area of art form?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't meet a lot of artists in person anyway, but I would imagine if I did, I wouldn't run into a whole bunch of them who have taken the path you've taken. And it's fascinating and it's creative and it's wonderful. How'd you get there?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's all within the same realm, but so I went to art school, and I had like when I first went to art school, I had a very like traditional idea of art, like painting and stuff like that. And at ECU, they have a foundation year. So basically you have like this year where you take a sculpture class, a painting class, a digital class, and I believe a drawing class. And then from there, you pick what you want to do, what major, which I think is a great thing because I had no idea. My dad wanted me to do graphic design because I had expressed interest in that. That's always been something I've been interested in. I took classes in doing Illustrator in high school and graphic design, but once I went to art school, I was like, nah, I want to do like the more like sculpture stuff because I took a sculpture class on foundation. But I ended up doing a mix of both. I did interior design, and I did interior design with a minor in craft material studies. Within the first semester, I knew it wasn't for me. I really wanted to do more art-based stuff. So I switched to crafts, and I did a minor in product innovation certificate. And so I kind of kept with the design, but doing more sculptural craft stuff. So that kind of led me to doing the craft and doing the 3D stuff. And then once I graduated VCU, I worked in some wood shops, and I did some prop making in LA, and mostly building other people's designs and ideas. And I was like, I want to design things. I want to be the designer, but I didn't have the software. And that this is today, like everything's a software modeled, rendered. Barely anyone knows how to sketch by hand anymore. So that's why I decided to go to grad school. And doing that in environmental design, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going back to like interior design. Like, part of my program was half furniture, half spatial interiors architecture. So I was like, this is just like a cycle for me. But so I think doing the design and product design led me to know that I still want to make work that does, graphic and more art-based sculptures, but still have that functionality of product, because I do love product, but I also love sculpture. So I think that's kind of where it led me to being a mix of both, because I have those influences in my past, the craft and the graphics, and then the product and the interiors. And I think altogether, I represent it, hopefully in a pretty solid way of doing both. So that's kind of how I went about getting to where I am right now. And this residency honestly has been great, because I've been able to lean more into my 2D work, because I've been doing 3D for so long, since grad school and after grad school. So this has been a great time for me to kind of embrace this itch I've been having to do some 2D graphic work or digital collaging work. But I'm happy I can also make a 3D work also. So that's kind of like how I ended up where I am today.
Great story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Schooling, and then I was mostly as like the influence there. Yeah. I think you had your question. You raised your hand earlier.
Nope.
Yeah.
Similarly related, I was curious, your whole presentation of your meandering path.
Mhm.
Do you, after academia, do you see yourself becoming more like a creative industrial designer, or not sure?
Yeah. So it's been a year since I graduated from grad school, a little bit more. And I've been working freelance, and doing that, I kind of take whatever comes my way. So that could be, I've been doing a lot of motion graphics, but also web design, and then also branding. So I think just through like the opportunities I have in Los Angeles and my job, that's what I've been working on. I think that's probably why I wanted to do such more like 2D work when I was here, because my work usually is so 3D. And I honestly, like, I don't know. I think that I like have ADHD. It's like rid of my body, and I get so much like that when I'm doing work. So it's like, all right, I'd be doing a lot of 3D work, a lot of product, and then do that for 6 months. And I'm like, I don't want to look at this anymore. I want to do something completely different. Like I want to paint, or I want to go work with fibers. So like I'm all over the place. And I think my dream situation would be like to be able to do it all. Have like work for a firm or have my own studio to be like, okay, I'll just take on most any project, like whether it be branding or whether it be motion or doing like artworks or something. So I think that, I kind of I flip flop a lot, which is I think totally what people. I mean, I'm jealous of people who truly like love what they do every day, because I do love what I do, but I do tend to like switch it up a lot, which can be like a lot for finding jobs and stuff like that. But so far, yeah, a lot of branding and a lot of web design. But I do like doing it. It's not accounting. So to answer your question.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I think it's admirable that you actually are still like, I'm trying everything. So,
Yeah.
and finding joy and happiness in most of it. So that's great.
Thank you. I try. You have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of answered it already, because hearing how you're like in this intersection of craft and product and what was the other thing you said?
craft product. I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I mean, I'm always curious how artists make ends meet. And you just spoke on what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, like, what is your vision? Like, if you want to say anything more about the practicality of it and your vision moving forward. I also just want to say this too. I met this woman who owns a luxury design brand, furniture in New York, and she said this, she's also an artist herself, but she has this artist that she loves, and she's like, he committed to making this armoire, and he committed to making 2 a month, and we can sell them for $16,000, and now he's making money because he wasn't making money anymore. And then they probably retail for $24,000. And then she said, I have this other artist who she thinks her vision is really clear, but it's all over the place. And I don't know, I just wonder about this, like being interested in multiple things too. Like what I got from her was that something got traction.
Yeah.
Just like, what's her name? George O'Keeffe. Like she's an incredible artist, but the only thing most people know are the big flowers.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, because you have experience with products, like how do you navigate that in your mind? Like, do you get pulled towards that at all and selling that, or are you just kind of following, oh, this came up, I'm gonna do this, oh, this came up, I'm gonna do this?
Yeah. I think right now in freelancing, I kind of just take on mostly whatever I can get. So in that way, it can be really great because I can just do a bunch of different things. I have played the furniture design game before. I've gone to ICFF and I've done the show, the trade show and everything as my own person, and it's a lot. It's a lot of money in it to do it and to be successful. And it's a lot of pressure because there's also this underlying fear that your idea will be copied by a manufacturer that can just do it in 2 days while it took me years to figure this out. So there is this level of oh, should I show it? Should I not? And I think I can just kind of let go because it's going to happen regardless. The internet is everywhere. And that's when you need to put it on to do it. Also Instagram, everything, you have to promote yourself. And I find that so hard to do. I really find that most of my work comes from word of mouth, just people I know. But to answer your question about what sticks, I was making these candle holders during COVID that were these Grateful Dead bears, and it was really fun. I was cool, and I sell in the store in New York, and it's great, and it's been going on it's dwindled down. I mean, I think at the most they ordered wholesale 1,000 of them, and doing this one thing over and over again, you start to hate it. You really do. And I just got an email from them for the holiday order, and I'm like, do I just tell them I don't do anymore? Because even though the money is nice, I'm just I don't know if I can keep doing this. And I think that people definitely struggle with that. Something sticks, like you said, and you make your money off of that. And I think you just have to do that, but then also do other things in time. Keep your money maker going, but keep working on different ideas, because I think if you do the same thing over and over again, it can really drain you. And I think with freelancing, I'm able to do different things, but I am very much doing a lot of the same, motion graphics, web design, and branding, which I do but sometimes I'm this isn't my passion, right? And I just try not to let that drain me of my creative juices, because and that's why residencies like this are so nice, because I can take the time, even just a month, just to focus on creating work and not worrying about the client's needs, is so great. They all everyone knows I'm not I'm off the grid. I'm not technically not, but I'm not responding right now really to things. So once I get back to Los Angeles, I'll reboot. But I think that's why residencies are so nice, because it just takes the time to you can just focus on making work. And it doesn't have to be for capital. It doesn't have to be for obviously selling things would be great, but it's just making art's sake is such a wonderful thing. And I think that really helps you keep moving forward and keeping that spirit of doing different things and keeping ideas flowing instead of getting stuck on one thing that makes money. Because it can be a pigeonhole, and that's what everyone's worst fear, I think, in design and art, is being pigeonholed, because you just do the same thing over and over again. It just kind of becomes lame for yourself, So that's kind of how I approach it. I try to do what I can to make ends meet, whether that be not a very exciting project, but I'm just be like, okay, I'm making time to like go residency, or this weekend I'm gonna make something else. And that's kind of what my advice to people who want to do different things, but also need to make money. It's definitely hard. It's not easy, but it is a privilege to go and do this. So hopefully that answers your question.
You answered it. I can't. Would you hire someone to make the candles?
I thought about it. I think also I just have like, I think I have like a kind of like a sustainability issue with it too, because I use urethane and I haven't had the time to like figure out something different. And I don't know anything about like ceramic works. It's like, I wish I did. I think that I would probably talk to like a ceramicist to like try and do it that way. Because that's one of the reasons I really feel bad, because I'm like, this is like not good for the environment. Like there's one thing in buying plastic things, and it's like when you're making plastic things, you're like, wow, this is really like a lot of like waste, you know? It's just like toxic. You know, I usually try to wear my face mask when I'm doing it. So that's one of the reasons I kind of, besides just being over it, I do have this like sustainability issue with it. But I think if I could find a different way to make them and find like a partner to do it, I would also need like probably a lot more interest in it. You know, this one place in New York has been great, and I'm like so happy that they found my work interesting and wanted to buy this at wholesale, but it was a learning curve for me. And, you know, I'm not a businesswoman, try to be, but yeah, I think I would probably want to find like a partner and would want a lot more interest in it to like put the investment into that. If that happened, definitely would be making them, but that's kind of my hold up right now on it. But yeah, so sustainability, and then also like just like not being interested anymore in making, I don't want to be pigeonholed into making like, I'm the Grateful Dead like candle holder girl, because I'm not, you know. It was like a COVID project that kind of blew up. And I think that happens to a lot of people, like these things blow up, like they don't intentionalize it too, you know, because I think it's kind of hard to get things to blow up intentionally on like navigating the internet and like algorithms and everything. So I don't know, it's being like a somewhat commercialized artist is like a interesting thing in 2024. There's a lot of avenues to do it, and then like it's hard to manage them all and have them perform the way you want them to. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question if anybody has one.
Real quick, what is motion graphics?
Motion graphics is kind of like, so like, you know, graphic design, like 2D flat. And then motion graphics is when like you put motion to the graphics or the elements. So in learning the stuff for product, I learned these softwares that like enable me to do animation. So it's basically animating these, you know, whether it be a product or it's just like a graphic moving like in space on the internet or on Instagram. So a lot of times I did something recently for like a jeweler, like she had a new ring coming out. So I modeled the ring in Blender and then I animated it in Keyshot. And she posted on Instagram as an ad, like it's just like a moving ring so you can see the whole thing. So it's just like, you know, another facet of advertising.
Isn't Hollywood the mecca for movie animation graphics?
Yeah. So Hollywood, I do have a good amount of friends who do that because we use similar programs.
Okay.
Theirs is at like a different, it's like a next level. Like I'm like, you know, they go like super high end like graphics card, and so they tend to use different, like they use like Houdini and other softwares, and like I'm trying to think like Reading Max, other ones that like I didn't learn, and I want to like, you know, learn some of them, but yeah, the stuff for the animation in Hollywood, it's just like a lot of times even the animation studios have their own proprietary software that they use. So they've developed a software in-house that they use to animate things that you wouldn't be able to buy off the internet or anything. Because in a lot of these softwares, you know, upwards of $5,000 a year. So it can be a lot of money to have them on your computer if you're not like a company. So I haven't broken into that as much. I do have some friends who do it, but again, like they're freelancing, stuff like that. So you can definitely go to school for it. I think Art Center had a program for it, but yeah, my level of like motion here and their level of motion is like up here, you know, for like a motion feature film. So But very similar in the way that like the workflow starts.
Awesome.
Great. Well, if there are any more
Thank you.
questions, I really appreciate you guys listening to me ramble on about everything. But and the
Thank you.
opportunity to be here is so amazing. Missoula, I've never been to Montana before. I've been wanting to for years. It exceeded my expectations. I went fly fishing for the first time. Like it's been great. And this opportunity to create art for art's sake has been so amazing. Thank you, Stony. And thank you all, the board, for supporting this amazing program. I've been telling everyone about it to come apply for next year. And if I can come back, I would come back.
Awesome.
So thank you again. I appreciate your time and your attention.
Thanks. Thank you, Rachel. Sorry, the pause.